Everyone, it is 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, January 25th, 2024. I call to order the annual organizational meeting of the Intermediate District 287 School Board. My name is Crystal Brackey. I have served as board chair for the last year, and so am presiding over this organizational meeting until we formally take the action of electing our officers for 2024. I am going to acknowledge up front that if there are bumps in our agendas and materials this evening, I will do my very best to navigate them. Juanine, who usually helps us make sure that we are running smoothly, was unexpectedly called away today. So a huge thanks to the team who has stepped in to ensure that we're able to keep running. And I will own all mistakes that happen from this point forward. As always, we will begin our meeting with a reading of the Intermediate District mission statement so that we can use that to really guide our work and our conversations this evening. The mission of Intermediate District 287 is to be the premier provider of innovative specialized services to ensure that each member district can meet the unique learning needs of its students. We are going to do board member introductions to also determine that we have a quorum to move forward this evening. So I will ask each board member to introduce themselves with their name and the district that they represent. And Kim, can I start with you?
Kim Ross, proudly representing Eden Prairie, District 272.
I'm Michael, Edina Public Schools.
Ann Casey, proudly representing St. Louis.
Shannon Andreessen from Hopkins Public Schools.
Renee Bowman from Robbinsdale Area Schools.
Dan Ginestra, Wayzata Schools.
Michael Remicall from Minnetonka Schools.
I am Heidi Marty with West Tonka Schools.
And as you may realize, we have 3 board members who are not with us at the moment. Ruthie Dallas from Brooklyn Center Community Schools may be en route, so you might see her. So if somebody's trying to walk through the door, if you could let her in, that would be great. Thank you. And then Jackie Mosqueda Jones from Osseo, and Karen Orcutt, who is our newest board member from Orono, is unable to be here this evening. So Karen will take the oath at the next board meeting. So wanted you to know that those are the 3 board members who are not currently with us. We do have quorum, and so we will move to the next item on the organizational meeting, which is seating of the new board member, which this evening is Dan. Dan, do you have a copy of the oath in front of you?
Should.
Great. You are welcome to stand or sit, whichever is your preference. Okay. You can see the oath in front of you. You may begin whenever you feel so moved in reading the oath out loud and inserting your name at the blank.
Do I have to raise my right hand?
That is your choice. You do not.
I, Dan Ginestra, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, and that I will faithfully and justly perform and discharge all the duties of the office and trust which I now assume as a member of the Board of Intermediate School District 287 to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations. You can sign that. I will officially sign it at the end. Welcome to the 287 School Board, Dan. We look forward to working with you. Next on the agenda is the nominating committee report. As outlined in our bylaws, we have a nominating committee of board members who meet to determine nominations for the officer positions for the coming year. The nominating committee this year were board members Sarah Johansson, Michael Birdman, and Jackie Mosqueda Jones. By the process of elimination, I believe board member Michael Birdman gets to share the report from the nominating committee.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the committee reached out to all board members to inquire about their interest or recommendations on nominations for our 4 officer positions, including the existing people who have been so generous in serving on our officer level for 287. And the result is that we would like to take the opportunity to renominate existing Chair Brackey as the new chair for the existing chair moving into the next year. Director Casey has also agreed to stay on as vice chair, and so we would nominate her as vice chair. Director Andreessen has also agreed to stay on as clerk. And even though Ruthie is not here, she also has respectfully agreed to stay on as treasurer. So the committee recommends that we renominate all existing officers for the new year.
Thank you, Michael. Are there any questions for our nominating committee from members of the board? Thank you. So with that, we will move forward with the election of officers. I will, as is required, call for nominations 3 times to ensure that there is ample opportunity for any nominations that would like to be entered into consideration. Is there a motion for election of board chair?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would like to nominate Crystal Brackey as the chair for 287 in the new year.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any additional nominations? Are there any additional nominations? Are there any additional nominations? With that bit of awkwardness behind us, I will gladly serve for 1 more year as chair. Everybody can hold me to that who is in this room. But thank you. I appreciate the vote of confidence, if nothing else. We have a motion by Michael Birdman and a second by Kim Ross to have me, Crystal Brackey, continue as chair. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye. And I will continue as chair for this meeting and the rest of the year. Next, is there a motion for the position of vice chair?
I move the nomination of Ann Casey as vice chair.
Is there a second? Okay. Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Okay, with that, we have a motion for Ann Casey to serve as vice chair by Michael Birdman and a second by Shannon Andreessen. I assume it is correct that you are willing to serve?
Yep.
Okay, great. Figured I should probably check. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and Ann Casey returns as vice chair. Next, we turn to election of the board clerk. Is there a motion?
I move that Shannon Andreessen be selected as the clerk for our board.
Second. Are there any additional nominations?
I do accept.
Thank you, Shannon. Are there any,
Write it down.
okay, good. Are there any additional nominations? Are there any additional nominations? We have a motion for Shannon Andreessen to serve as board clerk. Motion by Michael Birdman, second by Ann Casey. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and Shannon will serve as our clerk for the coming year. Last but not least, we have the election of our board treasurer. Is there a motion?
I move that Ruthie Dallas be nominated as our treasurer for the new year.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ruthie is not here yet to affirm her willingness to serve, but I trust that you did in fact touch base with her and that she is willing to do so, but we'll let her speak for herself when she gets here, if that is not the case. Are there any additional nominations? Are there any additional nominations? Last time, are there any additional nominations? We have a motion by Michael Birdman and a second by Renee Bowman for Ruthie Dallas to serve as treasurer. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and Ruthie Dallas will serve as treasurer. Thank you to the nominating committee, and thank you to all of the officers for returning for another year together. Next, we move to formal approval of the remainder of our organizational meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Renee Bowman and a second by Hardy Marty, excuse me. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the agenda passes. And then the next item on the organizational agenda is the consent agenda. And so what we have here is all of the annual routine items that we need to approve that we have put together as a slate so that we can approve them in one item unless there is an item that a board member would like removed for additional consideration. So giving people a moment to look at the list, and I know everybody had the board packet in advance of seeing what is in that consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Michael Birdman and a second by Kim Ross. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the consent agenda is approved. The last item on the organizational meeting agenda is a document containing the board member contact information. So this has all of the board representatives, email addresses, our board terms. So we just ask that you please review this and ensure that your contact information is up to date. You are welcome to share any changes that need to be made over email with Juanine, and she will make those changes and ensure that we have an updated roster for our 2024 school board. With that, we have reached the end of our organizational meeting. And so I will entertain a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting, and then we will move directly into our general meeting agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Ann Casey and a second by Heidi Marty. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the organizational meeting is adjourned at 6:42 PM. I'll do the ceremonial tap. And we'll, as I mentioned, move immediately into our general meeting of the school board. Good evening, everyone. It is 6:42 PM, and I call to order this general meeting of the Intermediate District 287 School Board. We have already gone through board member introductions and read our mission statement as part of our organizational meeting this evening. So we are going to move right into approval of our agenda this evening. This evening, we have open forum for community comments. We have the consent agenda. We have several success and recognitions. We have the annual fiscal year 23 audit presentation, our superintendent's report, a financial report, and then a number of items in board business before we move to closed sessions to end our meeting this evening. So just want to be clear that we will not be doing any board business after we end our closed session. The only thing we'll do is return to open session and adjourn after that. With that context, is there a motion to approve the general meeting agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion by Shannon Andreessen and a second by Heidi Marty. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the agenda is approved. Next, we move to open forum for community comments. We have 3 people who have signed up to share thoughts with us this evening. We welcome you and all of our guests with us this evening. I know that our speakers received information in advance about community comment at the board meeting, so I'm just going to share a couple highlights. One, and I acknowledge this is one of my least favorite things about this exchange, is that we as a board are not going to respond in the moment. And I just want to acknowledge the awkwardness that comes with that. Know that we hear and are grateful for what you choose to share with us this evening, and may be able to do individual follow-up after the board meeting with questions or things that we would like to further discuss, but there will not be any discussion in the board meeting this evening. I think the other thing is, I know you were each told that you have roughly 3 minutes to share your thoughts with us. We just ask that you respect that time, and I'll let you know if we start getting close to being significantly over that. I think that was really all I wanted to share. So with that, I would invite Michelle. Actually, the other thing I'm going to say, I apologize in advance for mispronouncing anybody's name. So with that, first up this evening is Michelle Seeger. Okay, please step up to the microphone.
I have 2 things I'd like to request. First is, can we have your permission to hand out postcards from
You
my
may.
membership to
Yeah,
board
that's fine.
members? And secondly, can we adjust the order of who speaks?
Absolutely. Who would like to go first?
Cindy will be going
Okay.
first.
Cindy Brophy?
I'm the lucky one.
Is that
yes,
right?
yes.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and start. Ooh, is
Whenever
this
you're ready.
right? I'm loud anyway. So good evening. My name's Cindy Brosey.
I've been an EA in the district for 30 years. I work with Tier 3 transition, DCD, and Tier 2 high school EBD. I fell into this field by chance, but shortly after starting, I realized that this was my path. I did not choose this career, it chose me. The huge, and this is very sarcastic, paychecks are not what keeps me here, but what does keep me here is the difference I can make in our students' lives. We have students from our member districts that need the highest level of support. Over the years, I've had my cornea scratched, gouges to my skin that have left scars, huge lumps on my head from intense hair pulls. I have been spit on too many times to count. And let's not even mention all the toileting catastrophes. I've also shed many tears over the unfortunate circumstances our kiddos have gone and are going through right now. But I keep coming back because these kids need us. For some, we are their last hope. This is their safe place where they get their emotional and physical needs met. I'm one of the lucky ones. I've seen colleagues over the years receive such severe injuries that they were unable to return to a job they loved. Every day, we have staff putting themselves in harm's way. Many are starting to question if it is worth it to stay. They can go to another district and make more and not put themselves in danger on a daily basis. It takes a special kind of educator to work with our population, and unfortunately, it is getting harder and harder to attract and retain staff that are skilled and qualified to work with our kiddos. Our wages as EAs are in the middle of the pack. Half of our member districts pay higher wages to their EAs, but we have their most challenging students. It's time our wages reflect the work we do. So in other words, pay us to retain us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So John Preston is next up.
Thank you. Regarding the time, Wendy led us to believe that 3 people, 9 minutes. Mine's about 5. Is that okay?
You've allocated your time accordingly amongst yourselves. I'm good with that.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Good evening. I'm John Preston. This is my 18th year in the district and in education. I teach the automotive technology and the Pathways program. I'm here tonight to advocate on behalf of fellow 2209 colleagues, current and future, and ultimately the exceptional learners we serve. Generally speaking, I think I have one of the best positions in the district. I love my job. I teach content I enjoy and is generally a motivating topic for the students. Because teachers are new to driving and really excited about cars, it's easy for them to stay motivated, and it's easy for me to see the growth and change in the knowledge capacity and their behaviors. With regards to job satisfaction, I have a great job. However, I can't say the same for all of my colleagues. I frequently hear all too often about injuries, very significant behavior issues, fights, constant understaffing, the lack of support both in physical matters of student behavior, control and management, or classroom coverage, and lack of understanding or empathy for moments when the stuff really gets bad. Staff injuries are all too common, resulting in further short staffing, perpetuating ongoing safety concerns. Because of persistent staffing within the district, the required attention students need to succeed is simply lacking. And because the teachers and ESPs are constantly on edge, along with many students, there is very little time to be in the correct state of mind for learning to occur. The gratification that many think comes with education, helping students overcome challenges, learn new skills, mastery of content, and help mold them into young independent adults is not as common as you would think within 287. I would like to tell you about a situation that occurred. A teacher with 3 high needs tier 3 learners left the district. Highly educated individual with multiple special education licenses and very capable at their job. One of the learners had been with the educator for 3 years and was at a point of making minimal to no gains. The student behaviors of disruption were becoming more frequent and more physically challenging and dangerous for both parties. A short time ago, when the students' undesirable and highly unsafe behaviors were at a peak, the teacher was having a difficult time managing the situation. This was so frequent that minimal educational gains, if any, were occurring, and classroom management and opportunity for the other 2 learners was negatively impacted. The teacher attempted to solve the situation with the supervisor requesting to reassign the learner with another teacher. I want you to imagine being with the same teacher for 3 years in the same classroom for the better part of each day. This is not a wise decision for either party. The supervisor's response was tantamount to ignoring the seriousness of the situation. In a moment of anger and frustration, the teacher decided to quit the district and submit a resignation letter. After a cooling off period for the teacher, they asked HR to withdraw the resignation letter. HR denied the request and the teacher is no longer with the district. This level of difficulty and frustration trying to manage the situation for the better and not having the support to do so is only one reason of many of why teachers are leaving the district. Teachers and ESPs do the work we do because we like to participate in society in meaningful ways by helping and guiding young individuals overcome and adapt to their challenges, but we just can't do it alone. According to the district's own routine human resources activity reports, ESP hirings with significant turnover have been relatively flat, and licensed staff relative to student population are down. This lack of stability with hiring and staffing contributes to the lack of structure for learners and allows for excess safety concerns for all and leads towards staff burnout. At the end of last year, we surveyed our members. We had 259 responses, roughly 44% of paid membership. One question asked us is if they were thinking of leaving the district. 31% district-wide were considering leaving 287, and 70% of those were going to leave education. 41% at NEC alone were considering leaving. The top reasons for leaving are safety. 32% of the respondents reported that they had been injured. Pay, overall mental and physical burnout, and the culture of the district are additional reasons. Clearly, for the work demanded in this district, the pay does not match the need to retain or recruit staff. The inability to staff appropriately is the root problem of many of our other problems that we are experiencing. 287 needs a pay and benefit package that reflects the exceptional challenge this district faces in retention and recruitment of ESPs and licensed staff. Thank you very much.
Last but not least, Michelle, is it Seeger? Did I get?
Seeger, yeah, you got it right. Good job. Good job. Not many of my teachers ever got my name right, so thank you. Good evening, board. My name is Michelle Seeger, and I work at South Education Center as a teacher. I've worked in 287 for 12 plus years, and prior to coming to 287, I worked in a general education district with Ms. Dowd's husband, actually. Pretty cool. I started as an ESP in our SECA program. I wasn't sure if a return to teaching was the right move for me or if it was a holding pattern until I could find something that paid better. Took a huge pay cut to come back to education and decided to stay because I love the students and the impact I can make on student lives. In many cases, staff are the only stable people in our students' lives. Every day in 287 is different. One day I'm wiping tears from a student's face because they got into an argument with their parent the night before and hurtful things were said. The next day I'm running after a student through the streets of Richfield just to catch up to him, get swung at, and then have to perform a hold with 4 other staff in the middle of the street with the neighbors watching. Another day I'm doing math with a student who tells me he's going to eat me or fight me, then proceeds to scratch my face and fight with staff until he is placed in a hold for nearly 2 hours, which ended in a trip to the hospital for him. Lastly, February 1st, 2022, sorry. February 1st, 2022 is a date that changed me as an educator and a person. The radio call came for a fight. My colleagues, and more importantly, my friends, rushed to the front of the building to help, only to find 2 young men, one of whom was fighting for his life on our sidewalk. Panic and chaos that our people felt was undescribable. Staff worked together to get students to safe spots and hunker down until help came. We spent hours in our classrooms calming students' nerves and answering questions. All the while, we were unsure and full of emotions ourselves. I remember riding in buses full of students, past BCA vehicles and agents. Thank you. As we drove out of school past BCA vehicles and agents, police, crime scene tape, the faces of our students were nothing but pure disbelief and fear. In the days that followed, I witnessed a group of exceptional humans come together to help students and each other deal with this traumatic event. We showed up every day and supported each other and our students. We showed up while fighting our own trauma from the event. We supported and continue to support students through their PTSD and emotions. We show up, we do the work, we sustain the injuries. We teach in classrooms filled with students who could go off at any moment. We put our safety on the line every day. We make an impact on student outcomes. Without us, this district cannot do the work it strives to do. You can add all of the managers and senior managers you want, but it is us that makes a difference in the students' lives and makes this place work. We are the ones who are in contact with students. We know them best, and they count on us every day. The same kids we want to put first. It's time to show us that you mean putting our students first and give us the contract that we deserve. Pay us to retain us, because we are not only worth every penny, but we're worth every one of your dollars. Thank you.
Cindy, John, and Michelle, thank you for what you shared with us. There is no possible transition that does justice to what you have shared. So thank you for that. We appreciate all of you for being here with us this evening. We look forward to continuing our work and our conversations and negotiations with all of you and in our meeting tonight in our closed session at the end of the meeting. So thank you. Appreciate you. Again, a completely inadequate way to transition to the rest of our meeting. So I just want to acknowledge that. Next on the agenda is approval of our consent agenda containing the routine business items that we review and approve in a slate, unless there is an item that a board member would like removed for individual consideration. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Shannon Andreessen and a second by Mike Remicall. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the consent agenda is approved. Next, we are going to move into the share the success and recognitions part of our agenda. First up is a spotlight on Northern Star Online, and I believe, I'm sorry?
Talia's.
Oh, you're here. I thought you were gonna be online, so I was just looking for your name and
Here I am.
I might have mildly panicked. But then I saw Ruthie Dallas, so I'm gonna take a moment to acknowledge that board member Ruthie Dallas is with us virtually now. So Talia, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having me here this evening. My name is Talia Vital. I'm the operations manager at Northern Star Online, and I appreciate getting to share a little bit about NSO this year, and especially to welcome one of our students to share about their participation at NSO. So Northern Star Online is a supplemental online school through District 287. We have students in about 200 schools across the state taking courses with us, typically 1 to 3 courses during the day, we offer about 150 courses to students to meet their credit needs, including a couple of new ones this year. We have Korean, interior design, ASL3, and then a couple medical careers this year as well. This year, we've had about a 20% increase in our enrollment, and that stayed true from summer to fall and now as we move into our busy springtime here as well. At NSO, our students are really the center of everything that we do and the reason that we do everything. And so being able to be responsive to our families, our students, their learning needs is really what drives us within everything that we do for their education. And with that, that's really guided our school improvement planning and our work through the past couple years. And a lot of what we've really been focusing on is building that student connection and building that rapport with our students. And so we've been spending a lot of time learning about culture responsive teaching strategies and implementing those with our teaching, and making sure that we really keep that focus on building rapport with our students, because we know that that is so essential to create those learning partnerships for our students, for them to be successful in their courses. And that's especially true for our BIPOC students. And so we've done a lot of effort around that within our teaching. This year, a big focus has been not only bringing that learning and that work to our full-time teachers, but also we have about 100 part-time teachers who teach courses too, and they're kind of spread out throughout the state as well. And so finding ways to make sure that we can bring that learning and making sure that no matter what teacher our students are having, they are having that experience of a teacher who cares about them, shows them that they matter, that their learning matters to them, has been really important. So we found a lot of creative ways to bring in that learning and work all together through professional development and PLC work, and different ways to bring that community together as we are bringing in those new strategies into our teaching. I believe that we have a student joining us. I don't know if are they here already or?
I think everybody who's here is what we can see
Okay.
on screen, right? Not here.
Yep, I don't see our student.
Why don't we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. If you don't mind waiting for a little bit.
Absolutely, I can, yeah.
If the student joins us, we can pause and go right away. Otherwise, I feel like we can keep going, and if nothing else, are grateful that you are here and can share a little bit about Northern
Thanks.
Star.
And maybe
Online
just in
with us.
case they don't come, I'll just share that
Please do.
who their name
That would
is
be great.
and who they are anyways, at least because I want to give them that recognition that their name is Yash Dagade, and they are from Eden Prairie High School. And he has been part of our science mentorship program, both last year and this year through NSO. And that's a program that provides an opportunity for high academic science learning for students. And so it's through scientific research, mentorship, and then participation in the International Science and Engineering Fair that the students get to be in. So it's a pretty special program for students to get to partake in. And we really wanted to be able to also congratulate Yash because he was named a top 300 scholar in the Regeneron Science Talent Search as a promising young scientist as well with this. So I hope that we get to greet him and have him join us. And if not, we still offer that congratulations to him.
Absolutely do. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And I mean, it's a lot for somebody to sort of virtually join a school board meeting on a Thursday night. So even if there is, oh,
Oh,
yeah.
maybe this is it. Oh, perfect. Yay.
What timing?
Oh, good timing.
Okay. Do you want to introduce? Yeah.
Absolutely, I will again. Yeah. Good evening, Yash. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
My name's Talia Vital. I'm the operations manager at NSO, and so I get the pleasure to introduce you to our board here tonight. I had just given them a little bit of a background of who you are, but I will again. That you are an Eden Prairie High School student who has participated in our science research mentorship program last year and this year, and been able to participate in the International Science and Engineering Fair. And we just gave you a big congratulations for being named a top 300 scholar in the Regeneron Science Talent Search as a promising young scientist. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you so much for being willing to come here and share a little bit about your experience in the program.
Yes,
I will
thank you.
hand it over to you.
Yeah, all right. So my name is Yash. I have been working on renewable energy research through the NSO assignment program for the past 2 years almost. And it has allowed me to connect with university professors and work at industry settings such as labs and connect with a lot of individuals. And it has been a truly life-changing experience, as you mentioned about all the awards. But beyond the awards, it has like given me a new direction, and it has like really helped me a lot in in gaining love for science and like fostering a love for science. Uh, I will like to say like at Eden Prairie High School, I really love the fact that we had a lot of teachers and uh, we had a lot of in classroom learning. However, NSO has also allowed me to like extend beyond the classroom and actually like do projects that many times adults would do, and that has been kind of validating and really nice. It has given me exposure to research at a much younger age, and it's really really appreciated. I'd like to thank Miss Hanson. She has been the best and is the best teacher. She changed. I often like to say like I was on like a different trajectory, and like she changed the slope of my trajectory. So like it doesn't affect. It doesn't only affect me now, but it's gonna like change how my life would have shaped. I was gonna be a different person had I not taken this class. It has literally been life changing in every sort of the way. Um, and then in the future I hope to like continue doing research due to this wonderful opportunity that NSO provided, and I'm really grateful for that. I hope to be a professor or continue my research journey and continue renewable energy research. uh yeah, that's all.
Wow. Yash, thank you so much. First of all, for being here. Second of all, for sharing all that. I feel like the words that you just shared about the difference that your teacher has made are like the things that a teacher dreams of hearing someday. So thank you so much for sharing that with us tonight, and we'll make sure she hears that too. Are there any questions or comments for Yash from members of the board? And I realize you might not be able to see us on the Google Meet, but here we are. Any questions or comments for Yash? Michael, go ahead.
Thank you very much for being here. My question would be, given how the program is structured and it's run and your success with it, are there any recommendations that you'd have about how we could make it better or make it more viable to not only yourself, but to other students that you know that might benefit from the program?
Yes, of course, of course. I do have a few things to say. I think I had to discover the program in 11th grade, and that was great. But I've one thing that I always wonder is, had I discovered it in ninth grade, it would have been even better. So I perhaps hope there's better outreach. I know for myself, I have like told two freshmen to like join the program, and I hope like we can get more word of mouth out there so like more people get this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you.
Kim, go ahead.
Hi, Yash. I'm Kim Ross. I'm on the Eden Prairie School Board. So I just wanted to let you know that at our board meetings, probably a couple of months ago now, your success and accomplishments were recognized there too. So we are very proud of you in Eden Prairie, and go Eagles.
Yes, thank you. Thanks a lot. I'm super grateful for our school. We have wonderful teachers. They fostered the love of science that allowed me to do research, and I literally like they're the best set of teachers out there. I promise.
Heidi, go ahead.
Hi, Yash. I'd just be curious to hear a little bit about what you're working on. What's your research project that you're working on?
Yeah. So for the past 2 years, I've been working on airborne wind energy. So uh, the elevator pitch for it is this: wind energy increases with altitude cubically almost. That's why current wind turbines keep on getting taller and taller. However, there's a limit, a physical, theoretical, economical limit to how tall they can go, and that's where scientists came up with AWS, airborne wind energy systems. They're like kites, kite power. So you have a tether and a system, and they hope to like get the power of the high altitude wind that current wind turbines struggle with. However, for most, like for all the odds that have been made so far, they struggle to scale to new heights and are limited to like 100 meters to 300 meters because of tether drag and also their inherent design advantages. Like they always like spin a lot. So I created a new and novel design that will allow me to like harness high altitude wind energy through bat clusters. This was inspired from fishes and how they swim and their structure. And my design has been patented. We have published a paper, or are in the process of publishing a paper in like a PhD level journal. And then, we also did cost analysis and have projected like 25% lower cost, being the lowest amongst all renewables. And we recently applied for like a ARPA grant. The lab that I'm working with, we applied for like a grant so we can make like a 1:2 scale prototype or 1:5 scale prototype.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Mhm.
I don't even know because I don't understand most of that, but it sounds good. Any other comments or questions? Yash, thank you so much for spending a little bit of your Thursday with us. Talia, same to you. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Thank you.
All right, have a great night.
All right, I'm gonna hop off. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. The second item in our Share the Success and Recognitions is just a brief acknowledgement that prior to our meeting this evening, we had a small reception to celebrate our 2 outgoing board members. So that was board member Michelle Kuntz from Orono, who represented Orono for many years on the Intermediate District 287 School Board, and Sarah Johansson from Wayzata Public Schools. And so deeply appreciate them for their years of service, however long or however short, to 287, and their commitment to our students, our staff, and our broader community. So just wanted to acknowledge Sarah and Michelle, and also share again how excited we are to have Dan as our new representative from Wayzata, and Karen, who will be joining us from Orono. Next, we move into our financial report this evening, which is a presentation of our FY23 audit. We're going to actually do a small bump of introduction of our new Executive Director of Business Services and Operations, so that we get to introduce you before you introduce the audit. How about that? Okay, I'm going to let our superintendent do the honors.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian Schultz, I'd like you to come to the podium. Brian, as you all know, May retired from District 287 at the end of December, and Brian Schultz was hired as the new Executive Director of Business and Operations. And I'll let you share a little bit about yourself before we get into the financial report.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to join this team. So just a little background. I actually started as an auditor for MMKR, who is actually presenting the audit this evening. So I actually worked with Jim many years ago. It's been 20 years now since I've been at MMKR. So it started there, and I also was 287's auditor back when I was with MMKR. So I audited 287, 916, 917. I think it was the Carver Scott Cooperative then, now it's 288. But I did audit all the intermediates at that time as well for many years, actually, the entire time I was there. But from there, I went to ISD 197, so West St. Paul, Mendota Heights, Eagan area schools. I've been there I was there for 19 years. I was in my 19th year this past year. I served as their Assistant Director of Business Services when I started, so after I left MMKR. And then a little over the last 12 years, I was their Director of Finance for the district. So that was a great experience at West St. Paul. It was a great time in my career. And after 19 years, it was just looking for something else. And this yet kept me with a lot of the same colleagues, working with some of the member districts. I know a lot of the business managers in the member districts. So it keeps me working within public education, but yet the operations of an intermediate are quite different from a traditional school. So that excited me. to come to the team. I also talked to several people that I knew that were familiar with 287, and they had nothing but great things to say about the organization. So that encouraged me to apply, and like I said, very excited to join this team in my first 4 weeks. Not quite so far. Have been great, and I look forward to many more. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So with that, I believe you get to introduce one of our favorite annual guests. Or I can do it if you like, whichever you prefer.
I'm fine if you would like.
So we would like to welcome Jim Eichten from Malloy, Montague, Kardowski, Rodosevich and Company to present our FY '23 audit. And the board will be asked to accept the audit at the end of the presentation and any discussion that we have. I will turn it over to you.
All right, thank you for having me this evening. I know that there's a PowerPoint somewhere in the, somewhere in the realm
We'll
of
get there.
what I provided weeks ago. But thanks for the introduction, Brian. Welcome to 287. Members of the board, thanks for having me this evening. My name is Jim Eichten with MMKR CPAs. I'm here this evening to provide a presentation on the audit results for the year ended June 30th, 2023. And Brian did suggest that he did work at MMKR, and he did. And we were out working as a team many years ago. So welcome to 287, Brian. My presentation this evening really is required. The district is required to complete an annual financial statement. That financial statement is about 100 pages long, and it follows governmental accounting standards as a whole, but it also follows auditing standards that are provided by the Department of Education in the state of Minnesota, the AICPA, which is the Annual American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. It also follows audit standards of the Office of the State Auditor. The Office of the State Auditor really is the oversight of all audits, even on top of the Department of Education and what they do. Does everybody have that?
We have a
Oh, yeah,
copy.
we got it right.
All right. Good follow. Yeah, thanks. The other, continuing on in my PowerPoint, we also, as far as our audit, we are required to audit the internal controls of the district. All internal controls specifically that we test relate to financial reporting. We don't audit all the controls of the district, just those related to financial reporting. Our audit includes auditing of government standards. Specifically, most of the governmental auditing standards that we work with relate to the aids that you're getting, specifically around state aids or federal aids, those types of arrangements kind of under the purview of our governmental auditing standards. And as I mentioned, we do audit your compliance with Minnesota state laws and regulations. That particular set of standards is a very specific list of Minnesota statutes that we test. We don't test all of the laws that pertain to the school district, just those on the list. Lastly, we are in the midst of completing what's called a single audit of federal awards. The district does receive a significant amount of federal dollars, and as a result, you're required to have what's called a single audit of federal awards. That particular audit is not complete. And the reason for that is the Department of Education, due to the volume of federal awards that's being provided to Minnesota school districts, has extended the deadline for the submission or completion of those particular audits to March 31st. Mostly related, their decision is mostly related on a lack of auditors and the volume of federal awards that are being provided to schools. And so they're just extending that time. The particular, in that single audit, we've completed most of the audit work, but the reports haven't been issued. You can expect to get further information as we issue those reports that will come to you at a future meeting. Am I up yet? Or should I just keep going? Just keep rolling. Okay. So the kind of in my audit process, I was able to issue what also is called the management report. And in that management report, you'll find the audit results in a concise and clear manner. It provides a lot of information on required communications. It provides a lot of information on financial results of the year. So the highlights of that particular financial report, that management report, first and foremost, I was able to issue an unmodified opinion on your financial statements. It was the opinion you were looking for, a clean opinion on the financial statements. One big accounting standard was implemented during this particular year, Government Accounting Standard 96 on SBITAs, subscription-based IT arrangements. The change or the impact of that particular implementation was highlighted in your opinion as what we define as an emphasis of a matter. It's really allowing the reader to understand, hey, there were some significant changes to the report related to that standard. There was a significant amount of work that went into implementing that standard, mostly by staff, Brian excluded. No, Gloria, who's back here, put a tremendous amount of work into putting that standard together. There was a ton of work in the development of those particular standards. And as you can see, just based on alone me highlighting in your opinion will tell you just that. Continuing on, the internal controls over financial reporting. We did not have any findings to report, no material weaknesses, no instances of non-compliance. I can even see it now. And lastly, we did not have any findings to report on the testing of Minnesota laws and regulations. So overall, no findings this year, really a perfect result as it relates to the audit procedures for this particular year, which is great news overall. So I'm going to move on to the financial information. I see everybody looking at their screen, so I'll continue on. The next PowerPoint presentation, or the next PowerPoint graphical presentation shows some information on financial results. We have a graphical presentation in there showing statewide fund balances. And the reason we put that particular information in your report is to give you a context of where we are from a fund balances statewide. Statewide fund balances over the last 10 years have really gone from, now I'm going to slow down, right? There it is. I'm going to talk long enough, they'll get there, right? So there's your statewide fund balance graph. This is actually on page 6 of the report. You can see on that particular graph, the blue line is statewide fund balances, and that particular percentage is the Department of Education's calculations. These are not internal calculations. These are MDE calculations. Fund balances in our state, which is really the equity position, was very flat over quite a few years from 2014 to 2019. When the pandemic came, we saw that actually fund balances went up statewide. Part of that had to do with operational changes. It was less costly to run a school district during the pandemic. Might not have been great for overall education, but financially, fund balances went up during the pandemic. And you can see that really both with the intermediate district as well as statewide, it went up during that time. Since that time, since post-pandemic 2022 and frankly 2023, I've audited enough school districts to know that that particular fund balance is going down. Expenditures are increasing, revenues are decreasing with the less federal money that districts are getting. So we're experiencing as a whole in our industry declining fund balances in our school district community. The next graph, I believe, is the general fund financial position graph of the district. So this is a 5-year graph showing the general fund financial position. It shows the district's fund balance in blue is an unassigned fund balance, and then the green is the cash balance of the district. So for the year ended June 30th, 2023, the district general fund balance went up about $500,000. This compared it to about a $1.5 million deficit that was projected, about $2 million better than what was projected in the budget. Most of that was in the special education area. There was 2 components in the special education area, and I'll get to those in a bit as to why that was. But overall, you can see at the end of the year, that particular fund balance, as you can see there, meets the expectations of the board You can see it's very flat, pretty much meets the expectations when it comes to fund balance. At the end of the year, the district's fund balance as a percentage of expenditures was 8.6%, the unassigned balance. So that 8.6% compares to a fund balance policy that endeavors the district to have a fund balance of between 6 and 8%. So you can see you're slightly above that particular range as a board. Why that percentage is so important is that fund balance policy should guide your decision making. It should guide your actions, if you will. You have a goal and a policy to stay within a range. Fund balance is really important. It's important because of cash flow. You use that fund balance to get through your operating results. So fund balance is obviously this year are very close to expectations and really as expected in terms of final results. Other commentary, when you look at that particular graph, you can see that cash balance actually went down even though fund balance is very flat. Most of that has to do with MDE's payment flows to you. The receivables from the Department of Education went up and at the end of the year, but ultimately cash is pretty much similar to what you would expect it to be. Moving to the next graph, hopefully. There we go. So this is on page 7 of the report, and this gets into a lot of great detail on revenues and expenses. You can see that revenues for the year were increased about $2 million for the year. Most of that was in the special education area, as well as some of the career tech programs. And if you want to scroll up a little bit, you'll see at the bottom of that particular graph that 8.6% I was previously mentioning. You can see the fund balance as a percentage of expenditures is 8.6 at the end of fiscal 2023. And it has ranged pretty much around that percentage for the last 3 years. As an auditor, I love that trend. That's an excellent trend. I say that for this reason. We are here I'm here as an auditor in January of a year that ended in June. And I can stand up here and say, yeah, the audit results held true to what your expectations were. You as a board make a lot of decisions throughout the year based on budgets and based on information you're getting from the board and from the superintendent and her team and finance. And you have to be able to rely on those decisions that they're going to hold true in the budget and the final results. And that is the case, has been the case for quite some time. And that's important as a board to hear that message and understand that. So I'll move on to the next. What do we got? There we go. This graph is presented in my management report on page 9, and it's really presented for one reason. This graph gives you pretty much a good sense. The graph is a 3-year graphical presentation showing cash and investments at the end of every month for the last 3 years. So it tells a story really that your cash flow from beginning to end is pretty consistent, but it's also very volatile. Not volatile meaning from month to month, but volatile from beginning to end. And so you can see the cash flow at the beginning of the year and the end of the year range or differ by about $15 million, 14.9 exactly. Why do I point that out? Well, that's why you need fund balance. You're trying to get through a year with the fund balance you have, and with cash flow like that, you really need that fund balance, and that fund balance policy really guides that discussion. So moving forward to the couple of the last presentation PowerPoint slides, the report that I go through does break down some information on various accounts of the district. This particular account summary is the special education area. You can see that the special education area's revenues did increase from 57.5 to 58.5 this past year. Most of that was in medical assistance. The medical assistance revenues were higher this particular year. And then you can even see on the expense side, albeit the expenses actually went down for the year. Most of that had to do with open positions. I audit 3 of the 4 intermediate districts, and that particular statement has been said the third time. I've had this presentation before. It's a very challenging environment you're working in the intermediate district world right now. And that open position is challenging for not only intermediate districts, but schools as a whole. So you can see that the results in that particular fund were to the plus about 1.7 million this past year. Next graph shows, I believe, the career and tech account. This particular account, you can see the revenues did increase from 1.1 million to 1.7 million this particular year, really showing increases in volume in that particular area, which is really positive for the district. The next graph shows the academic area, the academic account. You can see here that the revenues in this particular area went from 10.4 to 11.0, about $600,000 increase. And most of that was in the online programs of the district, which has seen some growth this past year. The district-wide account. There it is.
Really
Close.
quick, may I ask a quick question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you go back to the academic education account, the one thing you're noticing in the trend though, from 2020 to 2023, there's been a significant end year balance that's significantly dropping. Is that a point of concern, notwithstanding the revenues and expenditures that are happening, but in your that was a pretty significant drop from 22 to 23. Is that just, do we think that's just a blip, or is that sort of a functional or systemic issue?
Somebody can jump in if they are aware of the answer to that question. So right, this particular fund, the academic account, decreased about 400,000 in 2023. Where is it? Budget projected a fund balance decrease of about 560. So it pretty much meets expectations when it comes to budget. You can see that there is, the trend downward. So I don't, move to the next question. I'm the auditor, so.
I appreciate that.
There's Gloria.
It wasn't totally meant for the auditor. I was just.
So on the academic area, this audit combines our restricted and our unrestricted funds, so it also has compensatory. So this year we had, for the year ending 23, we had a real dip in compensatory, and we ended up spending a lot of fund balance to make it through that year. Fortunately, the revenue came back in 23, 24 here, but that's why you're seeing the
Okay.
large use of fund balance.
Great.
here.
Thank you very much for that explanation.
Thanks, Gloria. Right, onto the district-wide account. The district-wide account includes many of the programs that are supporting all of the various areas of the district. You can see that it's very stable in terms of overall revenues in that account. This particular account did decrease about 400,000, which compares to a decrease of about 500,000. So very close to expectations in the district-wide account. So I believe, that's the end of my presentation. So the district does have a number of other funds, a food service fund that they operate, a capital fund, a debt fund, as well as an internal service fund. All of those funds are doing quite well. So that's really the end of my presentation. I do provide an audit summary of this presentation, including that I was able to issue a clean opinion on the district's financial statements. I mentioned the emphasis of matter related to the governmental accounting standards. We did not have any findings to report, which is excellent. Very stable and consistent financial results of the district. They've been that way for quite some time. Financial results also show an adherence to budget, as I mentioned, which is probably should be the highlight for a school board member, knowing that you're going to get to the audit every year and the auditor is going to stand up here and tell you that it's close to budget. And lastly, it's a very efficient audit process. I will say that this organization has a very efficient process. Many of the individuals that work in this particular space have been with the district for quite some time, and which really leads to a very effective and efficient audit process, which I enjoy immensely. So, so with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you might have for me.
Thank you. A huge appreciation to the team that you mentioned, who enables a successful and efficient audit every year. We're so grateful.
Except Ryan.
All I was gonna say, including me.
All of those things. Are there any comments or questions?
always, every time you're here, every time you're in St. Louis Park, I say, and you said it tonight, like, the thing the board wants is no surprises.
Mhm.
And this is no surprises. And that's fantastic. And that is thanks to the work of our staff throughout the year. And May, who's not here. We get great updates throughout the year. So not only are we, adhering to the budget we set at the beginning of the year, but we also know what's happening throughout the year. So no surprises is great. We love it too.
Well said.
Any additional comments or questions? I don't see any. So with that, as a board, we could take the step requested of us, which is accepting the FY23 audit. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Is there a second? We have a motion by Ann Casey and a second by Dan Ginestra. Did I say it correctly? Okay, great. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Thank you.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the audit is approved. Congratulations and thank you to the entire team. With that, we move to the superintendent's report. We already did the first item, which was introducing Brian. So we are gonna move right into the second one and I will turn it back over to the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've already introduced Brian, so we're gonna move right to the next one, which is the Intermediate Teacher Residency Apprenticeship Collaborative. There's a presentation in your packet. And I'd also ask that our special education leader, Retha Burns, come up to the podium. And as a leader in special education, a senior manager, she has been very active in lifting this with our union representatives as part of it. So we'll get into the presentation. So we at District 287, like every other district, we have had conversations regarding employment, recruiting special educators. We have really done some great steps. The HR team has done some great steps and we've hired significantly in just in the past 2 months. But we also have to think about long-term goals. So we're thinking about what are some short-term goals that we have and what are some long-term goals. If you've been on the board in District 287, you've heard of a program called Grow Your Own, in which we grow our own licensed special educators. And we do that in collaboration with St. Cloud University. We also are opening into another kind of apprenticeship. So apprenticeship is not newer to public education, but you might have heard of apprenticeship more in the trades. And in education, we've kind of done things a certain way in regards to pathways to licensure, and this is radically different. So I'm going to use apprenticeship language, and so will Retha, and we're going to try to make that connection to what traditional pathways are. When this was introduced in the state, it's out of the, it was introduced to a lot of school districts, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and many. We all came together and heard a presentation around what apprenticeship could be with the Department of Labor and Industry and how they could support our teacher shortage. When we came together, the 4 intermediates had a sidebar and said, that's great, but we need to develop a teacher that really can work with the students that meet our needs. And so we came together and developed an intermediate teacher. So it's the 4 intermediates coming together and saying, how can we do this different and be agency that 4 collective agencies that are building strong teachers in special education. So what is an apprenticeship? We'll go to the next slide. And it really is a time-tested employee system. It's a job-related technical instruction is with job-related embedded learning. Now, in our traditional educational pathway, we'd go, okay, you go to class and do your credits in college, and then you come observe a classroom or you do your student teaching. This is giving seat time, college seat time towards licensure with on-the-job training. So while you're on the job, we have, the team has built standards with Mankato to say, you can earn this pathway and you get credit for working The other component about apprenticeship is the earn as you learn. So as you complete classes, you also increase your pay scale up to licensure, so that when we think about some of the barriers that we have been working through with other pathway programs, this is one of the barriers that allows for time as well as monetary support through the process. And it's not new, but it's new to us. So apprenticeship started in 1939. Next slide. So this is just from the Department of Labor and Industry, really looking at where has apprenticeship been in place. And you see it really starting more in the trades and really moving into public education. If we go to the next slide, Alex currently works as a contracted employee. He was at Pellsby, and was at Minneapolis Public School, but currently working with Department of Labor and Industry, and has explored the apprenticeship here in Minnesota in public educational workforce. And he has helped us and led us through this process to bring the 4 superintendents together. When they're thinking about licensure, this is in the weeds, but there's categorical license. So when we support students with, that are identified in special education, they're identified under a primary disability. And then we have autism spectrum disorder, specified learning disability, and those are categorical license. In Minnesota, we have a broad license, a general license that's cross-categorical, that is for students that have mild to moderate profound needs. Well, our students have needs that are greater to that. So it's really important that we look at an apprenticeship model that meets the licensure requirements of intermediates, which is different than traditional districts. So the team has come together, and I'll go to the next slide. And Mankato is the university that said, you know what, we want to help you intermediates make this happen. Came to the table, the 4 intermediates with the Department of Labor and Industry, and together we are developing the first teacher apprenticeship program in the state of Minnesota. There are 34 other states that do have educational apprenticeship programs that we can learn from, so we're not inventing it totally, but it is new to Minnesota. And then I'm going to pass it to Retha to talk about the design team.
So next slide, thanks. So starting September, October, there's a group that came together, about 30 people. There were union representatives from all of the intermediates, district leaders, and the faculty. And then under like Alex's facilitation, they came together. And the first thing they started doing was working on instruction, because we know that programming within an apprenticeship is going to need to look a lot different and more competency based, rather than that traditional go to class and learn and then go back to work. So just for our intermediate, we have a teacher and an ESP that have been a part of the design team. We've also had 3 of our union members. One, James, is here right now, but then also Michelle, who you heard earlier, and then John Fischbauer. So they've been very instrumental in like being sure voice is heard and perspective is there. So that's really important to us as a team. Next slide. So this is engaged also with Department of Labor. So part of what they need is what's called a sponsor. And so the superintendents, I think wisely, have asked Brightworks to come on board with John Schultz, right? And he's going to help us and sponsor this and help guide and direct the work moving forward as we move into that implementation. I think it's just it's going to be a really good match for us as a team. Next slide. It's an aggressive timeline, to say the least. I'm super excited about it. We've done a lot of good work so far. We're way down the road, and now we're really into the nuts and bolts of getting this really, what does it look like for our intermediates personally? Because although we're the same, we're also different and unique in the way we function in different ways and have needs. So right now we're right in the middle of finalizing the curriculum, getting some structures in place, making sure that we have that ready to go. Now we're going to move into making sure teachers understand, our ESPs understand, and that we're really starting to say, is this a good choice for you this year? And then bringing them on board and having them start the process. We're actually going to start in June. So by April, we should have them going through Mankato and making sure that everything's a good fit. And then we'll start in June. We're going to launch in June, and we're going to have an exciting summer and getting this figured out. You know, it's going to be fun, and we'll be flexible. So next slide. I think it's just questions. Yeah. So just any questions?
Just to add to that,
Oh, yeah.
I have to acknowledge 2209 union staff and district administration staff. I mean, it's a heavy lift, and it's a very quick timeline. And sometimes in that journey, it gets a little bumpy, like, where are we going? And appreciate the collaboration of the union representations of all the intermediates and the leadership of all the intermediates to say, we have to do something, because teachers aren't going to come out of thin air. And the way I easily summarize, it really is a co-teaching model, if I was going to use educational terms, where that apprentice is really embedded into the classroom supporting, and there is it's called a journey worker, because we're using language from DLI, so it's very different educationally. It would have been like a mentor or a teacher that supports, and it's a lot for the apprentice and the journey worker, the teacher supporting. And so it is a heavy lift, but I truly believe that our teachers coming out of this pathway will have really amazing experiences. And part of the apprenticeship is that the cost to the colleges is fully funded. And so the 4 intermediates came together and wrote a grant for the special ed pipeline that was passed. We received $4.3 million amongst the 4 of us to get this up and running. And that was significant. This is a significant dedication from all of our intermediates, also the state giving us a lion's share of that funding to really see if we can get this up and running to support special education. So it's proud of our team, very proud of our team.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, I'm guessing there are going to be a few questions. Heidi, go ahead.
I was curious how you attract students to this program. Is this strictly through Mankato, or are you marketing it elsewhere?
Each intermediate's going to market our staff. So our ESPs.
So it's for our existing staff
existing
primarily
staff.
to attend through or in conjunction with Mankato.
Correct.
Okay.
Not just ESPs though. If someone from 284 could also enter in, or some of our unaffiliated as well. So we could have any of those groups who have a desire to move into that role,
Just to add to that, as we build this program, we would offer it up to our member districts. This first year, it will be through our staff.
Dan, go ahead.
We have individuals who have already kind of signified some, intent to apply or to register. Is there kind of a backlog of applicants?
I'd hope. But it's a really good question. We've waited. I waited. I really want to be sure we have answers. There's a lot of things as we're moving quickly that we want to be sure we have answers for some of this, like compensations. We want to be sure we have a really firm agreement with our union, with our MOU, making sure as we move forward. But we are starting. It's coming out. And I know we had just in the Grow Your Own, we had over 20 interested people to start. And so they may shift into this as well. And so, yeah, I think we will have some, I'm hoping we have a lot that could qualify possibly too. So.
Shannon, were you about to ask? Go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of things. First off, I was just hearing again about the pressing need for educators in general. I believe the number of teachers prepared, graduated in the state of Minnesota, I think it's 12. So it's a huge need. And so I love seeing this as something that could help bring more people into the field. But I'm wondering, when I was at the delegate assembly with MSBA, there was a a proposal to create a teacher apprenticeship program in Minnesota. So hearing that you have been working on this is very exciting. The idea was to have it funded through the state, go through MDE. You already have a model. So I'm wondering if there's any kind of parallels after this pilot has gone. Is there a way in which we can advocate on a broader scale to make this a more robust and
Yeah.
out there program?
I'll answer that question. When this has been talked about amongst superintendents, DLI, probably since the fall, and they talk about a statewide apprenticeship program. And we decided to just branch off and pilot something smaller that could be used to grow it up statewide. And so we are working with, Alex is leading that too in regards to statewide DLI. And so we are part of that group, but we're doing a smaller pilot and saying, how can what we learned, what we developed, we can grow that up across the state. So there is a connection between the two.
Thank you.
Yeah. Michael.
The $4.3 million that
Mhm.
the intermediates were able to secure, was that one-time money to see how the pilot program go for a year? Or was there a certain period of time that that money is able to use to make sure that the apprentice program can be up and running and you have a few years to see how it pilots out?
So the pipeline grant was for, there's really two issues that we are dealing with in special education regarding licensure is that tier 1, 2 license, the tier 4 would be fully licensed in special education. We have around 25-ish, don't quote me on that, but around that tier 1 and 2 special teachers that are in special education. To be fully licensed, you'd need to be a tier 4. 3, sorry. And so some of that, the funds will help support, I don't want to say stipends, it would be used to help support their college credit to complete the licensure. And then a portion will be used for apprenticeship. And so we will have 2 years to get it up and running. And then there is conversations about additional funding in future years, one from this past legislative session, but then in the future. And we would be collecting data to support success rate support, because grow your own, you get a small $5,000 to go towards your educational costs in post-secondary. This is a full ride. And you're paid while you're working and really trying to reduce barriers for this pathway. And so it will be different. And so what we are talking about amongst the 4 intermediates is what does that look like for tier 1 and 2 and grow your own where it's not funded at the level of apprenticeships, and how do we level that playing field a little bit so we have multiple pathways.
Good. That was going to be another question I was going to ask, but thank you for proactively
Mhm.
answering it. I think the other question I would have is in this initial phase 2-year program pilot, see how it goes. Is there, with that amount of resource, is there a certain upper limit number of people that you could run through this?
Yeah, right
And
now
do you have a sense
we're-
of how many people that is? And I mean collectively for the all 4 intermediates or specific
Yeah.
to 287?
Yeah, I mean, we're budgeting around 10.
Okay.
But the issue is you need that mentored teacher, that journey worker to, with the apprenticeship. So even if we have more apprenticeship, there have to be matched with the journey worker. And there are different requirements under DLI than we would have for traditional mentorship and support. And so it's going to be a dependent on both.
Yeah.
And, we might start with 5 but we'd love 10, but we have to see, there has to be interest on both sides.
Well, I think what Shannon said as far as, taking this step and so on and so forth, I'm finally happy to hear that we're doing something in this area, not just in special education, but general education too. But specific to special education, I mean, this has been a black hole for some time. And so I'm glad that we're collectively doing that. And I love to see the leadership of not only you and but the other intermediates to try to do that while the rest of us are figuring out what we're going to do past that point. So I'm pleased and encouraged by this step. So best of success as you move forward.
Mike, sorry.
I just have a comment. Many people don't realize this, but medicine is actually an apprenticeship process. And I can tell you that having gone through that process, and the excitement that a new resident has entering a specialty field that they're really interested in, really excited about, but are honestly a little intimidated by because, in my case, surgery, that's a big thing to do. And I think that applies to the special education. It's a tough field to go into. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who want to enter the field and just have that anxiety that goes along with it. So I think this is a great step. I think if I learned anything about the medical apprenticeship process, it's successful.
And Mike, we're doing this as cohorts as well. So we'll have our teachers here as a team, right? And we'll be supporting them, but then they'll also meet with the RESPs that are moving through as apprentices. We'll also be able to collect with the other intermediates. We have meetings scheduled so then they can come together and discuss the experience and receive more education together as well. Not, I think it's like 4 times, but they get to come together as well to help with that anxiety. So.
Just closing comments, since board meeting, we will have Valerie Rosen come and talk about legislative platform in regards to, again, the intermediates. And you're going to hear this often. The 4 intermediates are really coming together, see with career and tech education, apprenticeship. Our legislative platform has always been a tradition, but we're saying, how can we do this together? And she'll be coming to share our legislative platform and legislative kind of outcome or not outcome, but projections. And you'll see on our platform, we agreed to ask for, even though it's not a funding year, but there may be one-time money for to support apprenticeships for the intermediates. We know it's going to be a lot on the journey worker and the apprentice. And so we're asking for additional, and you'll hear about it. And I have to do a shout out to Mankato University. And the reason why is most of the universities are doing this general license. And they said, we will do this for you intermediates because we know that license doesn't work for you. And so they are designing a program with the help of our teams, just for intermediate categorical license. And this is huge. In our world, this is huge. So it's been a heavy lift. And the team has worked very hard. I'm very grateful for Retha, James, and all the Union 2209 representatives that have been part of it. Thank you.
Yep. Retha, thank you so much. This is super exciting. I just want to share the appreciation. And I think the one thing that I just want to underscore again is how excited I am to see the design team and all of the people who are involved in this, and that we have teachers and ESPs that are part of the process. I think that will only make it better, stronger, and hopefully lasting. So just specifically wanted to share appreciation for that. And James, thank you for being part of that.
Thank you.
All right, we move next to our one item under business services and labor relations this evening, which is financial report and specifically approval of the routine monthly finance report. So Gloria Wilder, our Director of Finance, will provide the December 2023 monthly finance report. No, did I get it wrong?
It's not Gloria.
Okay, the
Yeah,
agenda says Gloria,
thought-
so Brian,
Yes.
please take it away. Sorry, Gloria.
I forgot to have it changed. May
Okay.
thought it would be good for Gloria since I was relatively new.
Okay,
But Gloria was here to help answer questions if there
Great.
are any. And
thank you.
so I move forward with it. So if you had in your packet this evening, that in the consent agenda, there was the November financials as well. But as part of the process with the board, each quarter of the fiscal year, we do a formal presentation of the monthly financials. So here this evening, we're presenting the December financials. So from the revenue standpoint, we're a little over $57 million have been collected from this year's for this year's budget, which is about just under 48% of the budget. This is right at or just slightly below where we were the past 2 fiscal years. Then on the expenditure side, we're at about a little over $43 million spent of our budget, which is about 36.5% of the expenditure budget, which is slightly below previous 2 years as well. And to note, these funds do not include our construction funds. We like to exclude those as they can skew year-to-year comparisons because those are one-time funds. They're not cyclical like your general budget. So overall, we're trending very good this year in terms of our overall budget. On to investments. So we started the month with about a little over $32 million in our regular investment account. We earned a little over $131,000 in interest and dividends on those investments. So we ended the December with $32.4 million in our regular investment account. And then on the long-term facility maintenance construction fund, we do have those bond investments for facility maintenance projects. That was a little about 3.9 million to start the month. We received $8,000 in interest and dividends, and there were construction draws for projects that were ongoing during the fiscal year to end at a little over 3.7 million remaining for deferred maintenance and facility projects in the district. And then going to cash flow, Jim talked about that in the audit. Cash flow is very important. I'd like to show the graph as well. This one is slightly different. If you remember him talking about it, right? His was here where it's quite a bit less. His bottom balance shows about $5 million. In this presentation, this shows all of the cash and investments we have, excluding construction. But why I'm showing it that way, we have a debt bond that we actually receive funds for. It's about $800,000 a year that goes into the debt service fund that we will then use to pay off that bond in 2029. So it's a little different than a traditional bond, but this just kind of shows our overall cash balance, how cyclical it can be. It's important, as Jim mentioned, with the fund balance. I always like to look at the cash and our fund balance because they do go hand in hand, and we don't want to get to a point where we have to cash flow borrow, where it ends up costing us even more money to just continue with our operations. So it's just a good graph to keep an eye on, and we're doing very well in fiscal 24. On the disbursement side, we had a little over $4.2 million, or just about 4.3 in accounts payable for December. Payroll was just under 3 million. Both of these do and are trending very similar to previous years. We did receive one donation in December for $221 for district-wide student wellness. And then moving on to our last slide, just to show kind of where we're at this fiscal year as of December with our enrollment and our different programs. So I'm showing our December ADM count and then comparing it to where we were last December at this point in time as well. So in our ALCs, we're at 245 ADM, which is 10 higher than we were at this point last year, which is great to see. North Star Online, we're at 459, which is 47 higher. And I believe they actually pick up ADMs faster the second half of the year typically, and we're actually seeing that trend right now. Career Tech is at 62 ADM, which is 2 higher than we were last year. Special Education, 479, which is 23 higher than we were at this point last year. And then Care and Treatment, we're at 87, which is our one below where we were the previous year, but Care and Treatment can be it's hard to predict Care and Treatment, right? It's just based on the need and the students that are coming for those programs. So that one will fluctuate from year to year a little more than some of the other ones. So overall, looking very positive as of this point in the year and going into the rest of the fiscal year. So with that, I'll open it up for questions before you approve the December financials.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments? All right, I don't see any. As always, it's really helpful just to get these updates every other month. So thank you to the finance team. Is there a motion to approve the routine monthly finance report as presented? Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Heidi Marty and a second by Shannon Andreessen. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the financial report is approved. We move now to board business. First up, we have 3 policies that the superintendent is going to share for a first read.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we finished the boo bucket. You all remember the board bucket. Now we're into the student section. And I do have to do a shout out to our Director of Equity and Inclusion, Kiara, that is online tonight. She really helped design, we always said student input is important in policies, right? So she helped design lessons and asked our social studies teachers, would they like to use these lessons, and the students go through the student sections of the policies and provide feedback. And so we did have classrooms provided, as well as our care and treatment, classroom and our care and treatment provide feedback. Some of the feedback they provided would be more of a procedure, and some of it would be to policy. And so we're using it in both ways. So the first policy we're going to review is policy 501, school weapon policy. And just to reiterate, what we have agreed to at the ad hoc committee is to look at MSBA's policy structure and numbering, and that will be the structure and numbering that we will use moving forward. So just as a summary of the changes, you'll see that in the title that the policy series to align with MSBA. So if you look at the summary, I'm going to highlight all of the changes in blue or crossed out. Under the definitions, this is also an area that was updated with legislative language changes. And so under the definitions, under G, dangerous weapons was included. One thing that our students provided feedback on is gender neutral language. And so under 4 exceptions, moving all the he, she's and putting they. And so you'll see pronouns being changed within the policy. Under B, we did remove sometimes sections of the policies, and you'll see this in the other policies where we haven't reviewed them in a while, and or language has significantly changed. And so out of ease, I'll cross out a section and just add it new instead of wordsmith little pieces. But B is a whole new component regarding legislative changes. And so there's a huge section added. And then under D, firearms in school parking lots and parking facilities, there is new legal language regarding that was added as part of MSBA's. Under section 5, consequences for students' weapons, possessions, use, and distribution. We did make changes, and there is new language in law as well as MSBA recommended language. You'll see that in the blue. We also had talked about weapon possession of non-students. So it is a portion of the students. You also see this when we get into the employee sections. We'll be talking about weapons with employees when we review those policies. And then again, just at the bottom, at an addition of reporting of dangerous weapons, what's the requirement by public schools now to report dangerous weapons? And then legal references were just updated based on MSBA's recommendation. I'll open it up to ad hoc committee if they have any comments. And you'll see when we always do the equity impact and talk about our goal is who's at the table when we're designing policies and procedures and ensuring that all voices are heard. And so you'll just see a summary of the recommendations by students.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions about this first read of school weapon policy? Heidi?
To clarify, is D, that's something, that's a new policy and that came from MSBA, the
school parking lot?
Excluding the, yeah,
Yes,
that's new. Okay,
it is.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions?
Sheriff Becky.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering if we had, if there was any discussion around the section of, consequences for student weapon possession, use, distribution. Either with students and or with the committee and thoughts were around that.
Yes, so for the students, it was kind of interesting in the feedback. And so we had students, we also had administrators that have to implement it. We had our leadership team, so everybody provided input. And I would say our students are the most strict in the sense of they should be doing that. They shouldn't bringing that to school. So it really was like, they had strong feelings about making sure the school was safe and that students really need to step up sometimes their behavior in around serious events, including if there was weapons or whatnot. And so I would tell you that's from the student perspective. For us, we really talked about, the seriousness of weapons. And when we get into other policies, we also are working with students to support changes of behavior. And so we always have to take a lens of the student is identified with the student with a disability. How is that impacting decisions being made? And, our goal is to keep the school safe. So I'm not minimizing weapons by any means, but it also is acknowledging the age and the needs of our students as we think about discipline.
Great. And do you feel that this policy allows for that flexibility, discretion?
This policy in combination with the legal rights of a student identified in special education.
Thank you. Yeah.
To clarify, is every student of 287 defined under that?
Every student would fall under this policy, and then we would need to talk about a student in special education versus a not student.
That's what I mean, yeah.
No, not every student in 287 would qualify as being a student in special education.
Yes, sorry.
I didn't think so. I just wanted. to
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so if you have additional thoughts as you are reflecting on this, please feel free to share them back either with the superintendent or you can share them with me as a member of the ad hoc committee as well, and I can get it to the rest of the group. We will move on to 532, involvement of crisis teams and use of peace officers to remove students with IEPs from school grounds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so if you look again, you'll see a summary of changes. It is a mix between some legislative changes, current regulations and MSBA recommendations. You'll see the structure change that we're moving to in the title. Under 2 general statement, we added updated language in accordance with MSBA policy. It is something that was recommended by students as well as administration to include when they did a side-by-side of what our current policy is and what MSBA. They felt like, and you'll see a theme, the more clear we can be, the better, and felt that language should be more in alignment with MSBA. Specific language. Under definitions, you're going to see some definition changes. And actually the definition changes that MSBA recommended in regards to crisis teams, peace officers. When you look at our critical incident, it's actually, we're more aligned with the MSBA model than the old policy here. So this actually is more into practice, especially the work that we've done around Raptor and really building crisis plans. This language, MSBA language, actually is aligned with our current actions. So you'll see definition, just to be clear about those definitions. Under 4, crisis team involvement. And we really, this is where you'll see a little shift that we went from MSBA because we request in our crisis team, we request support. We don't actually have a crisis team taking kids out. Like, so there's a request and not necessarily removing, but involving our crisis team with our other team members to support students that we know are working through self-regulation. And then one thing that the MSB policy changed from ours is that if the crisis team takes the child off property, we really don't. You know, a police officer or someone, we really try to keep our students on property, regulate. We might need to get them to a safe location, but they're always under our supervision because of their instructional needs. One thing that was talked about was reasonable force. And so, so you'll see the removal of a police liaison officer under B, and then under C, added language from MSBA about reasonable force permitted. And know that when we do need to go hands-on to support a student, that is talked about through the IEP process for students that have an IEP or in special education, and talking about all the proactive ways we would want to do before we ever go hands-on, but know that in an emergency to keep the students safe, that's critical. One thing that was removed from this language that is from MSBA recommended language is that you would go reasonable or putting hands on or reasonable force if there was a concern around the student damaging school property. And the language actually conflicts with our restrictive procedure. Restrictive procedure is a hold in that we support students on, where we go hands-on into a safe hold to keep them safe if they are harming in an emergency only, if they're harming themselves or others. And there used to be language around property that was removed, and it was still in this, and we removed it just to align with how we handle restrictive procedures here in District 287. And then the biggest thing, this was another one, parent notification. It came up as ours doesn't talk about parent notification, and just being very explicit about that under D. Continued removals, review of the IEP. This is really language that we have in special education. And so if a student's in restricted procedures, they're removed, they're excluded from class, there are expectations of the special education team to come together and talk about it to make a better proactive plan so the student can stay in class. The use of restricted procedures, this really articulating this also aligns with what I talked about with restricted procedures in how we talk about in special education. And then again, the big reporting to the Department of Education was an area that was missing, and it is a requirement. And then just updating all of the legal references based on MSBA's recommendation. And I'll open it up to questions and the ad hoc committee.
So I would just add, and maybe we mentioned this before, that working off the MSBA policies is also going to help when they get updated, right? I mean, so as we go through these things, we look at them through our lens to see what is applicable and what might not be. But, you know, starting with that and where it makes sense, keeping close to it will just help make updates in the future that come because of legislation changes or whatever more efficient.
I think the one thing I was gonna say is just the police liaison officer is included in here because it is such an important part of the statute, but is not something that we currently have in 287. And so it's in here. That is not our school safety coach. Our school safety coach is not a police liaison officer. So just wanted to make sure that people were clear about that distinction.
that noted anywhere in the policy?
It is not noted in the policy.
That might be a good addition. Perhaps.
Yeah, we could make a, just trying, thinking about policy, because I mean, there could be a police liaison officer that comes, I mean, the police still support our buildings and they'll come. So we'd want the language to support their work with us.
I know that when we reviewed this in Hopkins,
Mhm.
wherever that liaison language showed up, we removed it because we no longer have them.
Mm.
So it wasn't applicable, but definitely keeping in the officer, because we do have strong relationships with our police officers.
So removing the liaison, because it could be a police officer or a peace officer.
Right.
Right?
It could be either, I think we use some official, or I can't.
Yeah.
Law enforcement.
Yeah.
Something, I don't know.
I'll
Yeah,
look-
I would also say though, that leaving it in there means that if at some point in the future we decide to have that role, we wouldn't have to go back and change policy.
Well, I think the other thing is the police liaison officer isn't necessarily school-based, but it's tied to an agreement that would exist to have some sort of agreement between the district and law enforcement agency. So I think that this is the mechanism by which that would be governed, while the peace officer would be just sort of the ongoing work that we do with the police departments, particularly in the communities where our schools are located. So I think that's the distinction. So I understand why we might want to keep the liaison officer, even though we know that it does not currently apply to us. But I think your question, Shannon, about whether there should be something about the school safety coach, given that is our current. Elizabeth, were you going to say something?
Just in the instance of 3 of our locations in the jurisdictions that they're located, the designated school resource officers by that jurisdiction typically respond first, meaning they're not our SROs, but they are the officers responding for that. And so that Richfield's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Right? They're not necessarily,
Well, we don't have them anymore.
and you don't have them either, yet they've maintained a position.
I think in the absence of an agreement, though, those people
Yeah.
would be considered peace officers
Yeah,
and not
correct.
police
And
liaison
I think
officers.
that, yeah, if you look at the definition,
Mhm.
they are under contract, basically, with the school district. So I think that if, I don't know, I think by keeping it in the policy, you're saying that contract and agreement and relationship exists. That's my reading of it. Because as you said, they're peace officers and however they want to be called.
Well, let's take another look at the inclusion of police liaison officer and the question about having something tied to school safety coach, which is our current
Right. So
model.
they would be part of our crisis team.
Okay.
And so it gives examples that may include teachers or non-teaching school personnel. I could add SSCs in there
Yeah.
just so you can see them within our policy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on this one? Okay, so we will see some change on this. Yes. So let's turn to 515, which is protection and privacy of pupil records.
Now, the last time this was reviewed in District 287 was 2013. So we're talking quite a while ago. You probably are all aware in your schools, your school boards of the Privacy Act, I mean, all the changes that have come have been part of that since 2013. So to be honest, we eliminated the entire language in the current 2013 policy and adopted MSBA's because ours was so drastically deviant of recommendations and hasn't been reviewed. And so why it looks that way, I just want to be super transparent. And then it really is adopting MSBA's policy regarding protection and privacy of pupil records. This was a cut and paste. There was nothing eliminated and it's quite lengthy. We did add language to say that the superintendent would be that person kind of monitoring, oversight, and supervision. As you have to name someone throughout the policy. We really did talk about and students that we work with that are in special education, they are 18 years old, but yet their parents are continue to be the guardian and or the parents still claim them on their taxes, even if there isn't legal guardianship. So there was a lot of dialogue around that amongst the administrative team too, and just really understanding who has rights. And we felt that that language that MSBA provided was clear, and that's why we adopted it. I don't know, it's a pretty late, and it's one of our longest policies, so it's pretty lengthy.
I think though this is one that, you know, we talk about is so tied to law that it's not one where we really want to or should be going outside of what is in law. Because it's really important for us to be in compliance with these things that are really rooted in privacy and protecting those records. So I think it makes good sense that this really is that, as you said, sort of like copy paste job from those who have really done the work to ensure that this is fully in compliance.
Completely agree.
Are there any other, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we did. We did.
Could you maybe remind everyone who is actually on the ad hoc committee so that for some of our new
Yes,
members?
of course, absolutely. So the three of us on the board that are representatives are Kim, Jackie, Mosquito Jones, and myself. And then we have a lot of people on the administrative team who also serve on that core team. Kiara, who is with us virtually. Kevin over there behind the
Yep,
podium.
behind the podium.
Oh, he was. Elizabeth, Marcy, Juanine sits on the
Yep.
committee with us. I'm looking around the table to see. Okay, did I miss
That's it.
anybody?
No, that's it.
Okay,
Yep,
all right. And then lots of special guests,
we do.
including students
Yep.
and teachers.
Yep. And so I still have, yeah, it's been really fun for people. It's also been like for the students to look at it. They don't, I'm gonna be honest, there wasn't a whole lot on protection of privacy and pupil records. Because they also got to choose which one they had most interest in to really dive deeper into.
I think they made a good choice.
They probably made
Yeah.
a good choice. But even just the administration to say, oh, you know, like for our leadership team, our department, our building level team, when we do get requested records, hey, I didn't know this about all our, you know, just it was a good refresher, and we'll be doing professional development specifically around this policy because it was so outdated that we need to make sure our practices and our requests for any kind of pupil records our processes is alignment with this policy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you very much for all of you who are doing that. I know this is part of a change for our board to participate in this. That came out of a lot of discussions from the middle of last year.
Mhm.
So I'm glad to hear that it's going well and the work seems to be doing wonders. So thank you very much for all that effort.
Yes. And you can anticipate every board meeting we'll be reading policies as we have a little bit of work to do. So
We'll
it's
hear from
exciting.
What we see in our other districts.
Yeah, yeah.
Will you continue to use students and going forward? I think that's really fantastic.
That kind of
As the new policy committee member in Edina, I will be asking that question when I go to my first meeting.
Great.
Yeah.
Good.
Great idea.
Elizabeth, something you want to
Just am excited that I believe it. I'm not sure which of our board meetings in the next couple months, but we'll get a little report on that involvement
Oh,
of
great.
students in this process.
Mhm.
So, hoping to get some students here to talk a little bit. Their
They're experiencing it. Yeah. Really good.
All right, we will move to board reports and district news. So I'll share just a few things here. For the AMSD report, the main thing that I wanted to share and get on people's calendars, if you're interested, is the annual legislative preview, which is taking place next Friday, February 2nd at 7:30 a.m., either in person or online. So you do not need to be there in person to attend. And there will be a recording as well. And so that legislative preview really is an opportunity for AMSD members to present to legislators who are there in the audience, and then to have a discussion with legislators about priorities for this upcoming session. So highly encourage people to attend that on the morning of the 2nd if you are so able. A couple of calendar updates here for District 287 specifically. The next Get on the Bus, which Dan, just so you know what that is, it's sort of the event that we do here several times a year for board members and guests to be able to experience firsthand 287 programs. And so it often involves literally getting on a bus, hence the name, and going to visit some of our programs and some of our school sites. So the next event is on February 6th. And it is to really experience career and technical programs at Hennepin Tech. And I was on this Get on the Bus quite a few years ago and really enjoyed being able to see and be in our career tech programs firsthand. And John, one of our speakers tonight, is a teacher in that program. So you'll be able to see his classroom and his work as well. So I just highly encourage people to join that on the 6th if you are so able. Please let Juanine know so that she can expect you and any guests that you would like to bring from your home district. And then the next lunch with our partners at Local 2209 is on February 20th. So if you are able to attend that, again, Dan, I feel like I'm only talking to you here. I hope that's not too awkward, but it's a tradition in District 287 to have regular touch points throughout the course of the year with leaders of our union that represents both our teachers and our educational support professionals. And so it's just an opportunity to come together over a meal and talk about the things that are happening in the district. So again, that's February 20th, and you'll be able to RSVP to Juanine. Last item on the agenda before we transition to closed session is once around the table, and that is just the opportunity for board members to be able to share things with one another, whether it's updates, whether it's things that are happening in your home district. It really is just an open time for sharing. And so with that, I will open it up to see if there's anything that people would like to share with one another this evening. Kim, go ahead.
I just have one thing quickly. I forgot my notes. But at our board meeting this last Monday, one of our Spotlight on Success presentations was about early childhood intervention. And that was kind of really cool to, experience the collaboration between 287 and our district from the other side of the table, if you will, right? So it was really cool.
That's great.
I
Shannon.
just wanted to quickly say, we in Hopkins, our Legislative Action Coalition hosted our legislative breakfast that we do every year. Met with our legislators that represent even a small portion of Hopkins School District, and that was really great. We presented our platform of our legislative priorities and got to hear from some of our great students, and our focus was career and tech pathways, which is exciting when we get on the bus about that. And yeah, it was a big success and a lot of fun. It's every year.
Edina did the same thing this morning.
Oh, good.
Probably saw the same people, most of the same people.
Yes, probably.
Any other updates for one another? Okay, so with that, just a bit of a preview here, and then we'll actually take the vote. But School boards may move into closed sessions to consider strategy for labor negotiations. So this evening, we intend to move into closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.03 as allowed by law. So is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Michael Birdman